Alright, another one-take video. Let's go! What's going on, everyone, and welcome to the latest addition into my After the Hype series. This is when I take a hi-fi product that I reviewed in the past and then I revisit it. I talk about what it's like to live with over the long haul, and I also use this as an opportunity to share thoughts and impressions that I never revealed in my dedicated review. So, the focus of today's video is going to be on this guy, the Elac DBR62. So here's the game plan. First, I want to pay respects to the original debut series. Then I want to share my general thoughts and impressions of the debut speakers leading up to the DBR62. And then at the end of this, I'm going to get real with you all and tell you what I really think about these speakers. But first, let's pay some respect to the original debut line because it really did change the marketplace. Because now, here we are in 2020. As many of you know, the market is almost oversaturated with high value propositions, specifically under $1,000. But it wasn't always this way. In fact, one could argue that the commercial success of the original debut line propelled the market to where it is today. Because when it was launched around, the 2015 timeframe, what it did is it set a new expectation for the kind of performance that one expects for the money. This in turn forced other manufacturers to step up their game. And the net result of that is now we have a lot of options to choose from, baby. And another residual benefit is that it took Elac from being the C-tier German loudspeaker manufacturer and immediately propelled them to A-tier status, to where if you're considering an affordable speaker, say under $1,000, whether it's for music or movies, odds are you're going to at the very least consider an Elac. And that leads me to my impressions of the other debut speakers. And it really started with a friend of mine. So back when they launched this line, they took their bookshelf speakers and they went on tour. There was a trade show in California that my friend attended, and just so you know, my friend has a lot of experience predominantly with exotic high-end audio gear. He's a very jaded person, and quite frankly, not much really impresses him regardless of the price. But I remember while he was at the show, he gave me a call. And on that phone call he said, "Sean, my wife and I just left the Elac room and we are still wrapping our heads around what we just heard. They have these bookshelf speakers that are just a little bit over $200 doing things that I've never heard from an affordable speaker before. I'm talking about strong bass, natural sounding mid-range, treble that's smooth and easy to listen to, and an enjoyable sound that I actually prefer almost every other room at the show, to include systems costing well over $100,000. Sean, I'm telling you right now, these are going to be a game changer." And you know what? He wasn't wrong. A few months later, the press started to release their reviews, and the hype was on. People were just floored by these speakers. Now, I admit it took a while for me to get the bookshelves in for myself, but once I listened to them, I got it. Everyone was right. I mean, these speakers did what I think a lot of people are looking for when it comes to an enjoyable listening experience. And it became clear to me that Elac knew exactly who they were targeting, and they just hit it on the head. They knew that most people who are going to buy these speakers aren't dyed-in-the-wool audiophiles. Instead, these are people who will be connecting them to affordable entry-level receivers, people who will be streaming their media to their system, and God knows what the quality of that media is going to be like. But instead of offering this typical V-curve product with boosted treble and boosted bass, they went for something a little different. They went for something that had more naturalness in the mid-range, strong bass output, something that's impressive, something that would give you that wow factor, with treble that's easy to listen to, with just enough resolution to feel like you're getting good detail. So I think they hit it out the park. Now, a few years later, they released Elac, the debut 2.0 series. And when I listened to those speakers, I noticed that, yes, there's still the same tenets there, but they definitely made some changes. And what ended up happening is, during that 3-year span of the original debut line, they received a lot of feedback. And of course, enthusiasts being enthusiasts, they wanted changes done. A lot of people liked the smooth top end, but some people felt like it was just too dull sounding. Hey, liven up a little bit, can you? And then the bass, while very strong, yeah, it could get a little boomy sounding, especially next to wall boundaries. So people said, hey, could you tighten up the bass and make it just a little bit more friendly to wall boundary placement? And that's exactly what Elac did. So they livened up the top end, they cleaned up the bass, they cleaned up the mid-range even more, and they ended up with an objectively objectively better speaker in pretty much every single way. But I admit that, subjectively speaking, while I gave it a fairly good review, it didn't really do anything for me. I felt like it lost some of that entertaining charm that the original series had. So, when they released the debut reference series, I was curious. Was it going to take on some of that entertaining sound from the original series, or was it going to be an extension of the 2.0 series? Well, in short, it was an extension of the 2.0 series. Now, before I reveal my true thoughts on them, I want to give you some background information that you may find entertaining or maybe interesting. So I had a conversation with Andrew about them, and I asked him, so what was the deal about bringing these to market? Because clearly they're meant to be the ultimate expression of the debut sound, something that's warm and easy to work with and something that's easy to listen to, but better, right? And he confirmed that, yeah, that's exactly what they want, and they still wanted it to be affordable, and therein lied the challenge. So I'm sworn to secrecy on this, so I can't reveal the numbers, but he told me what his budget was to build these, and it was laughable. He almost was given no room to work with whatsoever. The only saving grace is at the time Elac, in fact even now, they have pretty good resources to access. So what he did with that minimal budget he was given is he basically put a lot of attention towards the cabinet, and he also improved the crossover a little bit as well as the drivers. And the net result of that, though, is arguably and objectively one of the best all-around bookshelf speakers at its price point. I mean, look at the cabinet. The cabinet is very dense and inert. In fact, it's arguably better made than many bookshelf speakers up to $2,000 a pair. I mean, they're more dense than, say, the Bocart S400s. So the cabinet is very well done for the price. The speaker measures beautifully. The integration between the treble, the mid-range, and the bass is almost like a master class for a passive hi-fi speaker at this price point. It's just like the debut 2.0 series, except better. More extended, more revealing. The mid-range is even more natural sounding. The bass still has that warmth to it, but now it's even punchier, has just a little bit more muscle to it. It is a really, really good all-around speaker. In fact, from the all-around perspective, I would say it's almost without a peer at its price point. But subjectively speaking, despite all of that, I'm still fairly lukewarm about the sound because I feel like even though it is very well rounded, it just lacks some oomph, some drive to the music. Unless you treat it like a true high-end speaker, which means you put it on high-quality stands. It means putting it on high-quality gear, something that actually has good resolution and something that can actually control a woofer like this very well. Once you do that, and once you put a high-quality recording through that system, suddenly you will hear what makes these speakers so special. Under those circumstances, yeah, they got emotion, they have resolution, they have naturalness. I mean, they can produce stunning sound, just jaw-dropping sound for the money. But what I find so weird is that once I take them away from that environment and I put them on more real-world gear and listen to more real-world music through them, which is what they were really intended for to begin with, this is where I feel like the sound is just kind of just a little bit uninspiring. This is when I prefer competitors, even though those competitors are objectively inferior, like Klipsch, Magnepan, Triangle. I feel like there's still more of an entertaining sound, something that just draws me into the music a little bit more. So I've lived with these speakers for a while now, and I've discovered that really it's about equipment matching with them. So if you're on a budget and you want to kind of counterbalance that very balanced but almost flat sounding presentation, again with a little bit of warmth, then pair it up to something like the PS Audio Sprout that's on the cool side of neutral. It has a lot of grip, but it also has just a little bit of energy on top. That's a good affordable mix match. Emotiva actually isn't a bad match for the money either. If you can't afford to spend, say, over $1,000 on a solution, those two options I found are really good with it. But anyways, overall though, I think they're objectively great speakers, but I still don't really love them, if I had to be entirely honest. It's not something I would personally choose for myself, but this is partially why I try not to be so subjective in my reviews, because what I feel shouldn't really have an impact on you whatsoever. My only job is to understand the performance envelope of a product and then relay what it can do and what it can't do in a way that will hopefully help you with a purchasing decision, something that will lead you towards a long-term happy solution. I think the only thing I need to cover at this point is there's still confusion to this day about where the debut reference line sits within the Elac portfolio. And it's actually not that hard because even though it does overlap the Unify line, they're two different products. The debut reference has a warmer sound, and it's still meant to be something that's easy to accommodate, to where you don't have to worry too much about the equipment, you don't have to worry too much about placement. You just put it in a room, connect your stuff to it, and away you go. Clearly, I think there's a little bit more involved with the debut reference than just drop and plop, but it still has that same spirit and still pretty much works that way in the real world. The Unified line has a different sound. It projects in a much more forward way. It has more of that hi-fi presentation. The mid-range is cleaner, the bass is cleaner, the sound is more dynamic. It's going to be more revealing, and the Unified line actually does need quality power behind it, or else you're just not going to understand what makes it so special. And for some people, that power costs just a little bit too much money. Whereas the debut series and the debut reference series in particular, that's easier to accommodate. You don't really have to work too hard to get consistent performance out of it. So hopefully that clears it up. Anyways, I've been rambling a little bit too much and stumbling over my words in the process, but nonetheless, hopefully you got something beneficial and or entertaining from this. As always, guys, thanks for watching, and until next time, peace.